guys, and welcome to this week's Wake Up CX. So this week, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about the term fake it till you make it and all of the advice we receive across the years. I'm going to share a little bit of a story about this particular piece of advice and why I think it's so damaging. So one of the things that some people that I know on LinkedIn that I've worked with in the past know I'm quite big into maths, and I used to do a lot of maths. And I've always liked to analyse things. And when I was a very young child, probably about 8 maybe, I used to do random math things in my home just as like a fun exercise. And one of the fun ones was what's 27 times 27, which is 729, and how many seconds there are in a day, which is 86,400. And these things are like random bits of information that have been stuck in my head ever since. But one of the days we were at school and we had a substitute teacher come in, and we were supposed to write down a couple of questions for the person sat next to us. A couple of maths questions. And I broke these questions down for one of my friends that sat next to me just to wind him up, have a little bit of fun. And when we were marking them all, the teacher put this piece of work up on the table, on the board, and she's like, "Oh, this is a great example. 27 times 27. So what you do is you take your 20, you times it by the 20, and that gives us 400. And then you take your 7, you times it by the 7, that gives you 49. And that gives you 449 as the answer." But that's not the answer. Like, it doesn't work like that. Understandably, I can understand how someone's logic would go that way, but as a teacher, you've got a responsibility to educate children, therefore you should be getting this sort of stuff right. And if you weren't 100% certain, you probably shouldn't have picked it as an example to put up on the board. And this is an example where fake it till you make it always sits in my head, because I think it's really bad advice when it comes to your working career. I've always preferred, I don't know the answer, but I'll find out and come back to you, as a much more positive approach to things than faking it. Because if I'm guessing my way through my work and through like customer service, for example, I'm giving people wrong information, and I'm just going to keep doing that until I eventually learn enough to correct myself. It basically means I'm putting errors out there and mistakes out there, and I'm putting people on the wrong path, and they're going to have problems and more issues. That's going to come back in the form of complaints and new calls, and it adds to the workload, which puts on more stress on everybody's back. And I think it's just really bad advice to, fake it till you make it. I don't understand why it's so popular and so famous. I can understand that, have a little bit of confidence behind the things you say. And that element of things I think is very important, especially if you're new in a call centre. Projecting a little bit of confidence in your voice will definitely make things go easier for you, because if you are given the correct information, your confidence can then, make the customer feel like, yeah, you do know what you're talking about, and I'm going to trust your advice. But it's also important that you don't just, try and bluff your way through everything. You need to know what you're talking about. And if you don't, take a moment and say, look, I just want to confirm this. Mind if I pop you on hold for about 30 seconds? I'm just going to go get the answer, and I'll come back to you. And it doesn't mean that you're not confident or you're not, in a position where you can help these people. It just means that you're in a position where you want to help these people properly, and you don't want to set them on a path that's going to lead to more and more problems. Again, with this, it can be the errors can be as small as, a customer not getting a refund within the right time frame. The refund's going to be in 10 days and you've told them they'll get it within 5. And that's a bit of an annoyance and it's a frustration, but then it can have a ripple effect. They may have made commitments based on that money coming in that's now not there. They may have borrowed money and now they're racking up interest. And it's all from you just making a small mistake. So it's always best, in my opinion, to second guess yourself and just go and get clarification. And not only that, the act of getting clarification itself, for many of us, will help us jog that memory so in the future we remember it. One of the fun ones I found with my daughter recently, she's just started working in a contact centre, and she was saying basically while she was going into training, like I'd worked there before, so I was able to give her some advice and guidance on, you know, the processes and everything else. But she found that during training, because of the way she is, she couldn't just listen to what was being told to her. She had to type it out, read over it again, and it was that, you know, multi-stream way of learning. And I do think that's important for many of us. And the act of physically checking something can be a good reminder for us. You know, that will then solidify it. The same way as that teacher challenging me many, many years ago stuck that equation in my head. It's just fun things like that that I do think is important. And again, I don't think people say it with malicious intent. It's just one of those things. There is great advice, there is bad advice, and then there's why bother telling me advice. But it's always done with the best of intentions. But obviously when we're entering a new job, a new role, or a new situation, we will get so much advice. And a lot of it, as I say, unsolicited. So you need to decide if it's right for you to listen to that advice, and do you take it on board, or is it something you dismiss? As I said, I want to keep this episode short because I'm keen for other people to share the advice that you've received over the years. Was it great advice? You know, because there has been some great advice I've received over the years from people. But again, there's also those bad advice. So what would you say is the best advice you received, and what is the worst advice you've received? And how long did it take you to figure that one out? Like, which is which? Because it took me a little while, I'll be honest. And I definitely bluffed my way through a lot of conversations at the start of my career. Thankfully now I'm very confident in the ability to say, yeah, I don't know. I'll need to look into that. And to be honest, I think that's one of the biggest sort of positives I've made over recent years, is to get more confidence in saying, I don't know. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I hope it's maybe making you think a little bit about the advice you've received and the advice that you give to other people. I'd love to hear what you have to say, so drop a note in the comments or drop me a DM and we'll have a chat. And I shall see you next week.